Hi, I'm George Nordhaus, and welcome to Monday Morning. We're going to talk about transforming your agency by instituting the change process. Nobody likes change. I guess we all like to have done it, but none of us like to think about doing it. But it's something we just have to constantly face. And two of my old friends, both of them, Diamond and Brandie Hinen, have come together, and they put together we're going to show you today, they're going to show you today all about some of the reasons that we are not changed like we should do. Al's the head of Agency Consulting Group over in New Jersey. Brandie has her own organization, and it's quite an interesting one because she's one of the better consultants. She is actually what I call the accountability partner. She's the person who can move people to solutions so they can feel the accomplishment of getting things done. She's a mover and a shaker and a teacher and a trainer, and of course Al and both of them are working with us on all the things that we do, and so it's a wonderful opportunity for us to go forward and kind of introduce their new cooperative effort, which you're about to hear about. Okay, guys, what are we going to talk about? Who's live? Who's first? Al?
I am, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
Brandie and I have known each other for quite some time. She's an extremely talented consultant and trainer, and I've done it for a long time as well. And when we came together and talked, we found that we shared pretty much the same philosophies. We had different approaches to doing it, but we were both convinced that insurance agencies need to transform themselves from the way they've been in the past into something new. And so we developed a program that we'd like to talk about, and it really is creating a process of change in the agency. But the first question we've got to ask ourselves, truly, is do you even need to change? Because really, if you don't, if you like where you are in your business, if you're living comfortably, you're moving things along, you have perpetuation, everything is cool, and you're making money, enjoy your life. You don't have to do anything different than you're doing now, no matter what the pundits say. Mm-hmm. However, if you're losing sleep, if you have bad feelings in your gut, or you're not growing and making money the way you expect to, change is imperative to you. You can't go without it. You have to do something different. Yeah. And it's imperative for your future as well. So what we found so far is that most agents, most of us, I include myself in this, are pretty much overwhelmed with things that are going on. We're always seeking answers, and whenever we find them, we may or may not get the greatest of information. We don't know what to do to make those changes happen. We get great philosophies, we get great ideas, we don't get the how-to. We may even take steps to change our agency, but when fires occur, things stall out. So after years of seeing exactly the same things, we found some key elements on how to transform your agency, and we'd like to bring them to you.
Good, I like that.
Well, first of all, noise. Oh. Noise isn't what's going on in the background in your office. As an example, do any of us remember our college studies? How much of that do we recall? The answer is, of course, not much, because too much information was thrown at us way too fast. Another example, have we ever found extraterrestrial life? Why haven't we found extraterrestrial life? And the reason is that the universe that we look at is so large, and there's so much white noise out there, we can't distinguish between the important or the unimportant. And George pointed out that he isn't sure that we found intelligent life on the Earth yet, let alone extraterrestrial. I thought I'd write that in there.
That was good.
I believe it. I believe it. But, boy, I know what you're talking about, being overwhelmed. All of us are. Every person. I can't believe it.
So what we came up with is the difference between the principles that are really good ideas and the process of actually implementing them. The problem is we're fed the principles, all the white noise, and some of them are really, really good ideas, when what we need is a tailored process, a how to employ those principles. principles are in fact the truths, the 10 Commandments. And a lot of business principles that have been espoused over the years are absolutely terrific. The process, on the other hand, is how to apply the appropriate principles to our own individual lives based on our individual situations. And frankly, there's only one that fits each and every one of us, and they're all different. Brandie, do you want to take it from here?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So one of the big challenges that you guys are going to face is how to turn these principles into a transforming process where you actually get the results you're looking for. That's the purpose of all this, right? If you're going to change, what do you change for? So we have 3 quick steps for this. First of all, you've got to identify the real core problems and challenges that apply to your business and to your life. So it's not always just about the business, right? Sometimes it's about you and how you relate to adversity when it comes. And this is where Al and I have seen this over and again, is that when we have agencies here in the U.S. and in Canada come to us and talk, they often talk to us about some of the big challenges that they face, and yet what we can identify at times are the symptoms. Now, let me give you an example. Account managers not getting your renewals out on time, or producers not doing enough to market themselves or the agency, or you not having enough time to address everything that you would like, you not being consistent. We hear those as symptoms of some of the core issues. So number 2 is identifying solutions from the myriad of principles that would apply to your individual situation. Now, on the screen it says using agency intelligence. That's not your brain power. It's your willingness to look at the metrics, the numbers, to gauge the what's and the where's. So, for example, how often is your team not getting the renewals out? And on what account? What size? Where are the team dynamics broken between the producer, the account manager, and even your company relationships? What are the human people habits, right? The discipline and workflow that's missing. And for producers, do they not have a marketing plan? Less than 10% do, by the way. And what information, the material, what does it go out and how often? And is it captivating to your audience? And I don't mean newsletters, by the way. Are they tracking the numbers and reporting them to you at least monthly? For you, can you develop the discipline once again to calendar and set the time on the business versus in the business? And that's where implementation comes in. You see, change happens immediately. It's a result of your choice. It's the implementation of change that takes time. So this is where we would encourage you that innovation, intelligence, and implementation have everything to do with what's happening with your business. Those are our 3 core areas to discuss with you today. Innovation. Well, every agency has raw talent and human assets. Most of us just don't know how to use it to our advantage. People kind of do their own thing on their own timeline. And so what you did in the past may limit or doom your future. And so how do you evoke a spirit and feeling of pride, fellowship, and common loyalty shared by your whole group? That leads us to the next one, intelligence. As we mentioned, this one is a tough one. These are those times as a leader that I have to look at the reality of my business. And of course, Al has a quote here that knowledge about your business is not an important part of your success. It's the most important ingredient for your success. Looking at the intelligence that you can gather about your business eliminates managing by that gut feel, and it allows you to market by ROI, the return on your investment, not just for your money, but also for your time. And it helps you identify talent by productivity instead of longevity and ego, and I know that's a tough one out there for all of you. Lastly, of course, is implementation, that tough one. We know that you guys want to change. We know that you really want to better serve your clients. We know you want to grow. For us, when we work with organizations, we see that implementation is the proof that you're changing from being an insurance salesperson to becoming a true consultant and a provider for your clients in such a way that they see value. Moving from discussion into action takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of consistency, and sometimes a good accountability partner as well. So that's where innovation, intelligence, and implementation come together and create transformation for you.
Well, that's good, Brandie. I love that. Those are really, those 5 or 6 things, I'm going to memorize those. I'm going to put them up on the wall here, look at them myself, and remind my wife occasionally.
Yeah. Yeah, everything that we do has to do with those 3 big areas of innovation, intelligence, and implementation. But you know what, I have a saying, George, we've been conditioned to accept philosophy without action as innovation. And some of us are sick of it. We see it in our society, we see it in politics, and it involves that sticky, uncomfortable thing you were talking about called change. But here's the good news. If you're uncomfortable, yeah, some of us are sick of all the same old, same old.
I didn't realize I didn't interrupt, I didn't realize you had Al's picture in there, and that's really...
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh-oh. I'm going to hell all this one now. Okay.
There I am.
There you are.
There on the left.
There you are again, Al. That's great, yeah. And I guess I'm on the right.
Yeah.
So keep saying, think of all that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and here's the truth. If you're uncomfortable, guys, it means that we're growing, we're developing as a person, and giving your team the encouragement to do the same thing. I dare say that sometimes we find consultants, instructors, and teachers that bring us that same philosophy without action. And what they will do, and what sometimes you do with your team, or even at home, is you will tell people what to do and expect things to get done. In fact, go ahead. Ask your kids to clean their room and see how that works out for you.
Yeah, they've done that, yeah.
Right, yeah. And if it's nieces and nephews, you know what your guest bedroom is going to look like by the time they leave. And so what we have up here on the screen is something called tell, do versus agreement. And there's some metrics here for you to look at. George will have it for you, or you can email Al or I to get a copy. But really, what happens for us in these organizations where they're having a tough time with change is we find that we often get together in a staff meeting or a producer meeting, and we tell people what to do, but we don't necessarily audibly, with specific examples, with a lot of specificity, get information back from them that says, yes, I agree, and this is what I'm going to do, and by when.
That's good. I like that page.
So we realize as we work with all of you that so many great things lie within you, and yet sometimes how you see yourself is not today's reality. There's feedback that comes, right? I say the physical universe doesn't lie, right? Water is wet, rocks are hard. Sometimes the physical universe is what can get in your way. So in order to fix things, it takes a few honest realizations. So most of you know what you should do to change. You don't necessarily know how to start the fixing. So there's 3 quick steps here before I turn it over to Al. First, I want you to look in the mirror to see your own faults, your own inadequacies, and your own insecurities, and have the courage to know that you can overcome them. Even for those of us that are a little more experienced in years, we see it all the time. Then, once you have that realization for yourself, then look honestly at your team. Where can you invest in their growth and development, and where do we sometimes need to make tough changes? Lastly, in order to embrace some of the steps, you need to embrace a process that will help you feel that accomplishment of getting some things really done, and maybe some things that you've had on your list to change for a long, long time.
Good.
So Al, would you talk to us a little bit about the process?
Sure. As we said, there's a big difference between the philosophies themselves, the ideas, the things that will change your universe, and the how-to. And most of us can read in books what needs to be done. But the steps to build a process aren't that significant. They're not that difficult to state. They're just difficult to do. For instance, the first thing you have to do is analyze your agency's key aspects: selling, service, and administration. How many sales are made? How many policies are lost? These are things that you need to know on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. Service, you need to know what your service levels are and what your retention is. If you don't know that within your agency today, the first step in building a process is to analyze what you have going on now. The second thing is to isolate each aspect and do a SWOT analysis. Some of us know what that is, but what it is identifying the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that relate to each one of the key elements of your agency's operations. And by doing that, by writing on a piece of paper what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, you have the beginnings of an implementation process. And the third step is when you do that analysis, when you do the SWOT analysis to identify what changes need to take place, don't try to do them all at once. Do them one at a time and start with the highest priority item, the thing that will give you the most impact. Finally, monitor, fine-tune, and manage the new process in order to assure their success. Too many times we've seen agents actually implement a process, then walk away and do something else, expecting the process to work by itself. It never does, and even if it's a beautiful process, you will need to make some subtle changes to make it worth the time and effort and make the change necessary within your agency.
Right.
So here, Brandie, give us a master checklist of the real issues, the philosophies that need to change in agencies.
Absolutely. And so, you guys, if you don't have these on your list of things, then maybe you want to add one or two of them. It'd probably be a good thing to add. This is what we see in organizations all the time. And by the way, if we've missed one, please let us know. Number one is formalizing a lasting relational sales culture. You know, we use cliches all the time, and yet I really want to encourage you to get rid of that cliche. What does relationship really mean? And how can you create a relational sales culture in your organization? So that's one of the big issues that we see in most agencies. Number two, to deepen the relationship with your insurance companies. Now, I know we talk about this all the time, and it gets really complicated, but here's the truth. You have a relationship now with your companies. In fact, they grade you based on how well you're doing in developing and building a lasting relationship with them on certain criteria. And if you don't know what that criteria is, I want to encourage you to ask your marketing rep or your field rep or your underwriter how you rate in that criteria, because, by the way, they talk about you every quarter, and they're using the metrics that Al was talking about before. Number three, create and train you. You get some training, and to think about a leadership culture. Even if you're only running a relatively small organization, you know, you have influence that you don't realize. People look and listen and hear you all the time, even when you don't think they're watching. Next, introduce an incentive compensation program of some kind to objectively pay for productivity instead of that longevity and ego we were talking about. This is where your metrics comes in, where people are actually being compensated based on what they produce, not just how many years they've been with you. Next, we want you to evolve your client relationship management, your CRM. I call it CRM as a verb, not as a noun. And how often are you getting referrals from your accounts? And lastly, to enhance your workflow and your performance. If you find that things aren't getting done on time, it has a lot to do with that efficiency and the discipline for performance and workflow. And we'll talk about that here a little bit more in just a second. We want to encourage all of you to find real-world answers and resources for both big things in your organization, okay? Big things. Number one is the task-oriented side of the business. Second, the people-oriented side. So just like when we teach how invaluable knowing personality or behavior styles is, in truth, if you yourself are dominant in one area, your culture is likely to be lacking in the other. So for example, lack of sales culture. If you are really dominant in being organized and specific and task-oriented, your culture probably looks pretty good there. But as we see on the next piece, if you're maybe dominant in the task-oriented side, you may be lacking in some of the people-oriented side in your culture. And how does it show up the way we see it? Lack of recognition, disgruntled staff. How does it go to the task-oriented side when people are unhappy? Lack of efficiency, workflow, and procedures. You may be getting feedback about gossip and unproductive dialogue. And you know what? Some of those things you know exist. You just may not know how to fix them. So when you're not really sure what to do, most people sometimes find it easy to do nothing. However, I know you know that's not the answer either, because doing nothing will not help you achieve what was on your list.
Okay.
So Al, would you kind of wrap this up? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. And these are really important issues. However, each of the different issues that Brandie just went over need to be treated with a similar process. And if you do that process properly, every time you face a new issue within your agency, you implement the same process and find a solution. First thing we do is we analyze the problem. Now, we don't react necessarily to the pain points alone. Realistically, they're like symptoms. They're likely to be symptoms rather than the actual cause of the problem itself. Similarly, compare your agency against your peer group. We at Agency Consulting Group have a pretty deep peer group study that we share freely with anyone who wants it, and there are others in the industry that do that as well. If you do it in a line-by-line basis to see your financial performance, you'll notice where your vital signs of the business are weak and where they're strong. Then survey your staff, something we very, very rarely do, maybe because we're afraid to do it. Do it in the blind so that they don't put their names down on the surveys, and this gets you their views of the best and worst parts of the agency. If you do it in the blind, they're going to be pretty legitimate with you in what they say. And finally, you analyze both new business trends and retention. Now, that refers to certainly dollars, revenue. We don't talk premiums, but it's most important to identify the new business and retention trends of customers to determine whether you're bleeding clients. Those kinds of things analyze the problem. The next thing you do is the SWOT analysis that we were talking about before on each agency aspect. So you list the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats regarding any single problem, and you identify the changes that each would take to take advantage of the strengths and opportunities and to overcome the threats and weaknesses that you disclose. You implement change, number 3. You do it one at a time in priority order. By all means, enlist your employees, your staff. Enlist them to participate in the creation of change, not be the recipients of it. They're not an audience sitting in their seats ready to clap for you. They should be participating in the entire process. Create a priority list. When all your needed changes are listed someplace, you create the priority list based on the amount of benefit that will be gained, or conversely, the pain that would be avoided by the implementation of that change. Next, you develop the entire plan of implementation, the how-to, the by-when, and the by-whom, before you ever begin the implementation process. These are key important elements to implementing change one at a time. And you monitor, fine-tune, and manage. You have to create metrics for every change. That which isn't measured is sure to fail, I guarantee that. Fine-tune ideas into workable process. Nothing is going to be perfect in its original iteration. If things don't work, don't abandon the idea, fine-tune it. And you have to manage both people and process during the term of the change. Until you're convinced that everything is working on your own, you have to manage it closely, and then as you step away, you still have to audit it at least once a year or even more.
You know, this is all fine, and we all agree with this. But boy, this is a heck of a tough thing for agencies to do. They can't.
I'm not saying.
Huh?
I'm not saying it's easy.
Well,
what I'm saying is that if they want to change, if agencies want to change, it's not enough to know what needs to be done. You have to have a combination of what needs to be done and how to do it.
Yeah.
Can it be done internally? Yes, it can. Is it easy?
No.
Absolutely not. And certainly, Brandie and I have come together specifically because if you don't want to do it yourself, we have efforts that will help you perform any or all components of transformation for agencies and brokerages through the United States and Canada. Brandie, do you agree that we've done this before together and it seems to work?
Yeah, it works really well, and this is why, you guys, this is why it works, is because we stay with you in the process. We realize, again, if change happens immediately, it comes through your choice. So, for example, you say, yes, these are the areas that we need to see movement and results, then that's where we come up alongside you, and we use a combination on this next piece, which is a combination of in-person training, then unique interactive media curriculum with accountability triggers. So we have training videos that you can use at your leisure on your timeline, and we can also do it remotely through coaching and homework that moves your people from discussion into action. So in other words, we don't come in and live with you all the time. We also don't come in a fleeting moment and leave and never help you through the process. So we've kind of come together to bring you a very unique, different approach in the industry.
do both of you guys go to an agency, if you're working with an agency on this together, or do you do it one at a time, or how's it work?
We've done both. We'll come in together, especially when there's a lot of issues going on in an agency. We'll get acquainted with everyone. We identify the issues and problems and help the agents work out the process. And then Brandie, who's absolutely astonishing in forming relationships with agency staff, is there, and so am I as needed to make sure that the implementation process goes smoothly. There not to hold hands, but to guide the process on a day-by-day and month-by-month basis. Maybe not in person because that would be prohibitively expensive, but certainly remotely, and we use all forms of technology to support that.
Great. Boy, I can imagine, because I've known each of you have kind of a different approach, but now you have the same approach on this type of thing, and it works. I can just see it working great. I've talked to some agencies who've done it. You've done it. I talked to one of yours down in Texas. And
we seem to complement each other quite nicely.
I really do. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful idea. So if they want to get hold of you on the Powerhouse Learning, there's the information. There's the contact information. And I appreciate you doing this. And boy, I think, you know what this is? This is good ABCs, like it's Change 101 or something. Maybe we should call it that, because it really is. It's gut level stuff that all of us just can't quite get to do. You know, it's frustrating. It has been to me over the years, I can imagine. So anyway,
well, George,
what? Go ahead, Al.
What has impressed us is that the agencies who are actually ready to change, the ones who have
yeah, good.
Not given up hope, but have the heart to do the change. We can do this. We can either help them through it. We'll give them all the materials that they need if they want to try to do it themselves. Or we can walk through it and help them in any phase of the analysis, the identification of the process, and the implementation, including the training of your people and the monitoring through dashboards and reporting structures of how the process is changing the organization.
That's a
as well.
smart thing.
Brandie, do you agree with this?
Absolutely, yeah. And you know what? We make it easy for you guys to change. I know that sounds almost like it's an oxymoron, but really, we make it easy for you because we stay with you in the process as long as you'll have us.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful opportunity, you guys. I want you to give me more information and feedback. I know I'm going to be working with you more in the future on this program. I'm going to tell a lot of agents about it. I'm going to make you guys a alliance with us on our new thing that people are going to learn about called insurance needs analysis. I know you'll hear more about that, but I know that the three of us are going to work together on it, and so I'm very excited about it. And I hope that this won't be, of course, it won't be the last for either of you. I've been interviewing you for how many years, and here we go again. But listen, let me just thank you again on behalf of all of our agents. And don't forget now, if you go to the email that came in, and you can go to the archive there. You can see the rough notes on our website and get all of these. There's it's getting close to 100 on there right now. I'm gonna have it so that you can just put a system in there like training. I'll use this one. You can give me the title, Alan Brandie, and I'll put that in there so that people want to know more about trading. Click on there, and there you'll be live again. So it's coming along, and we look forward to seeing you next Monday morning.